I used to love these.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of the Euphoria Season 3 finale, aka the series finale. We just learned that HBO has confirmed there will be no new episodes of Euphoria. This is definitively the end. The episode is entitled In God We Trust. We need to start with overall thoughts, Patrick Klepek. What did you think of this finale? We have talked about how this has been a pretty scattered season. Did the finale redeem things for you, or did it confirm that this season has been largely a waste of time?
I think this finale is where the illusion finally completely shattered for me, in which holding out hope that Sam Levinson had something to say, only to be confronted with what I can only describe as complete nonsense in the final episode, was profoundly disappointing, because I think Euphoria seasons 1 and 2, which we talked about in a different podcast as I did my first watch of the show, straddled a really interesting line between aesthetic maximalism and genuinely trying to provide some insight, having something to say about its characters, the world, and watching it ride that line and like at times choosing, screw it, I don't want to have anything to say. Like, I actually just want to like lean into the aesthetic like that. It made for something genuinely thrilling. So like it felt subversive. It felt dangerous at times. It was a really exciting show to watch. In season 3 of Euphoria, jettisons any attempts to walk that line. And by the end, I think casts the whole show that I've been watching trying to give the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, I guess if I just choose to watch a different show, like I can maybe get on board with what I'm watching. I was so deeply frustrated by the end of the show, how it outright betrays, I think, a number of characters, betrays any sense of a real like resolution and closure over the course of the show. I think it doesn't retroactively make Euphoria 1 and 2, seasons 1 and 2 worse. But the way I'm going to think about Euphoria after having watched the end of it is that it ended at season 2. It had a beautiful ending for the show. And then there was a fan project backed by HBO that they called Euphoria Season 3 because it had a pretty beautiful ending. And you got to like, it's easy to slip into, well, I guess retroactively that wasn't, and like, no, like Euphoria Season 1, like there are incredible highs, like some of the best television I have ever watched scattered across those seasons. That is not taken away. But I think season 3, I'm happy to escort off to the side because I have no interest in thinking about you past the recording of this podcast.
I think the tragedy of Euphoria Season 3 is that Sam Levinson actually shows that he's a very talented genre director this season. There's some really great tense sequences throughout the whole season.
Absolutely.
And I also think that Alamo Brown as a character is a really wonderful creation. Like, I think that is a compelling character, in my opinion, and represents sort of an element of America in some way. Like, he is kind of America's best and worst tendencies, mostly worst tendencies embodied in a single character, right? And the best parts, I would say, like, are like the entrepreneurialism, the belief that you can always improve your own conditions, that you can be anyone you want to be. These are things that are distinct to America, and they don't really exist in other parts of the world to the same degree or in the same flavor. And so I think Alamo Brown is a great creation. But virtually everything else about this season has been kind of a disaster. I think that I also think that, by the way, if they had just chosen to focus on Rue this season, that actually would have been better because, in my opinion, all of the stuff that was not Rue, all the Cassie stuff, all the Nate stuff, all the Lexi stuff, all the show business stuff amounted to nothing at all. Like there's whatever commentary they're trying to do has been done better or more incisive or funnier elsewhere. I do not know what he was trying to say about Hollywood in Euphoria Season 3, but it was not anything particularly insightful or interesting, in my opinion. That's my reaction. I mean, like every job in Hollywood is like some kind of sex work. We're all pimping ourselves out to some degree, or like
That's
whatever
its
the
own
message was.
show. That's its own show. Like there's
Yeah,
3 or 4 shows in season 3 of Euphoria that all undercut one another. I don't know if they would have individually have been good
yeah,
shows,
yeah.
but it would have been an opportunity for any of those to have the chance to breathe and say something, as opposed to what we end up here is like every sideshow suffocates the other one.
I think if this had just been about Rue and Ali and maybe Jules, like imagine if that was the whole season, right? And it was just about them.
Or Maddie. I thought
Um,
Maddie's intersection into Rue's story, I
yeah,
ultimately it didn't justify the whole Cassie like Nate subplot, but I bought those worlds overlapping, and that happens so late in the game that it doesn't really get a chance to really explore that. But I'm with you on the broader point of if they just focused in on Rue and then a couple of characters in that
yeah,
universe that maybe just kind of jumped in and out. But look, we have Elmo Brown, we've got this strip club, we've got this,
right.
we're going to do a Tarantino Breaking Bad sort of thing, and a drug addict kid who's like can talk good game is our window into that. Cool. I go make that show. They didn't make that show. They made like
Yeah,
1/3 of it.
yeah, yeah. And I would say a lot of the decisions that characters make in the series finale of Euphoria really come out of nowhere. I mean, Ali's big turn at the end, I don't know if I fully believe it. And then, of course, Bishop makes a really huge decision that it's like, okay, did we really lay the track for that? Really? I don't know if we did. I don't know if
It
we did.
makes the most important moments of this finale make the previous events, like Maddie's slipping on mentioning the DEA stuff,
Yeah.
even more infuriating. Like you wrote this season, like you didn't have to invent like the flimsiest of reasons to arrive at this. If you wanted this to happen, there were other more organic ways for it to happen, not for a bunch of characters to do ridiculous things to contrive how we are just so just like shivving different characters along the way to arrive at a forced conclusion.
I'm going to read the plot summary of this episode from Wikipedia. Rue escapes Laurie's ranch with G's help after injuring Wayne and fleeing from Harley. And again, I'll stop there for a second. I think that some of the filmmaking here is just really good. Like this sequence, I think is really good with the whole lassoing Zendaya and like, wow, they actually it looks like they actually went out and did something like it. And then Marshawn Lynch with the sniper rifle coming in and saving it's just like,
And he was
okay,
good. Look, like this can get lost. His character is pretty minor. The evolution of Marshawn Lynch now you live in Seattle, so
yes,
like he is one of the all-time. He's not one of the all-time great running backs in terms of talent, but in terms of personality, in terms of presence, in terms of what he meant to a certain era of Seattle Seahawks football,
yeah,
nothing like watching Marshawn Lynch. And then like he's pretty good in this show for what he's asked to
yeah.
do. He's asked to do not a lot, but what he's asked to do, he does. He's got some great moments in this episode in particular that I was like, Marshawn, maybe you should be in some more. Usually he's doing goofy acting stuff, comedic stuff that is part of like sort of a trading on the fact that he was a football player and that he's such a big guy. He does some shit in this episode that I was like, good use of Marshawn Lynch in Euphoria.
Yeah, I would say he has been surprisingly good in TV and film. And in particular, I want to call out he appeared in the movie Bottoms. And also he played himself in the Netflix series Murderville. That's a show where Will Arnett goes and tries to solve crimes with people in real life, and they're part of like a real life murder mystery. Anyway, Marshawn Lynch, yeah, solid acting career so far. He's got a bright post football future ahead of him. Anyway, great opening sequence, just really well done. And also, as the DEA closes in on Laurie's operation, Alamo takes control of a fentanyl shipment by switching ambulances, end quote. Now, all the stuff with Laurie being apprehended, I thought was just beautiful. It's just beautifully shot. You have these, law enforcement vehicles whizzing by in this fog and illuminated in the night. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Also, pretty funny scene when they switch ambulances and the guy says, "Hey, where's my Coke?" And he says, "I thought you were done." And he's like, I wasn't done. And I don't know about you, Patrick, but this is a common occurrence in the Chen household where if I'm sharing a drink, a soda, or most often it becomes like an ice cream with my wife. It'll be a thing where it's like, oh, you hand the ice cream over to the other person, and then they eat like more of it than you had originally planned for them to do. You know what I mean? Has that ever happened to you? Has it ever happened with you and your wife?
Yeah, like the ice cream one doesn't happen too often because she just wants a bite. But then sometimes I'm like, well, should I just get my own? And sometimes she's
Right.
smart enough to really like we've been together many decades now. Like now she understands like I'm just gonna get 2 kid-sized ones, and then you just have your own, and
Yeah.
I have my
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Let's not fight.
I agree. That's a
No
good policy.
disappointment.
But I did think that again, there's like, oh man, that's like clever that they had this funny moment about sharing Coke, and it turns out to be a clue about the fact that they switch ambulances. Like, I actually think that's good
It was
writing,
pretty
like
good.
good genre writing, you know? Anyway, facing arrest, Lori kills herself. And Alamo gives Rue money and Percocet pills secretly containing fentanyl, and she dies from an overdose with Ali finding her the next day. So, with Ali finding her the next day. Now, actually, what is not detailed here, right, is what actually happens to the rest of Laurie's crew. Specifically, Faye and Wayne get away, right? Faye is like hitchhiking, and then Wayne approaches the thing, and then I think Harley's if I saw correctly, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Harley surrenders as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, then we get this dream sequence with Rue where she learns that Fez has escaped and she is going to go and try and save him. And my reaction the whole time is, Rue, what are you doing? This is a very silly thing that you're doing. But turns out it was just this fantasy that she's having as she was dying from being poisoned with fentanyl by Alamo Brown. And she in this thing, she's in this dream sequence, she embraces her mom, who had one line this season. Nika King had one line this season, and kind of has a vision of her dad as well, and then has a vision of Fez, who again in this universe is still alive, which again, as I discussed in an earlier episode, I think was a mistake because this is less significant because Fez is still alive and she's dying, and so it's like the idea you hope is that they're kind of passing into the same plane, but in the universe of the show, he's still alive.
Mhm.
And then Rue is dead. And first of all, we called it, Patrick. I mean, I think we predicted that this would happen. I think we're shocked that it happened because Zendaya is a huge star. And I think we're very shocked that it happened about halfway to 2/3 of the way through this episode. So there's still a whole third of the episode left. Anyway, Patrick, any reactions to the end of Rue?
Yeah, I was getting dangerously worried with the whole Fez stuff. My man, we're about to like AI Fez into the
Right.
show. Like I was sweating bullets on what they were about to do with this character. Like, oh, this could be so incredibly tasteless if we proceed in a certain direction. And then it eventually clocked for me. Well, as they cut away to Rue with her hand in the air, like, right, okay. I guess it makes more sense that she's dying than Fez having like I forget how the news describes. He's got like a very unorthodox escape by an inmate today. He parkoured out of the prison, and it shows him like shuffling up.
It shows
a
a
wall.
Fez, an Angus double parkouring up the wall, right?
Extremely should have taken that less at face value than I did. That's on me, I guess. Show to just completely go with that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the parts that I struggle with. Like, I think broadly this finale does not work. I think broadly the season doesn't work. But where Rue ends up, dead at the hands of the decisions she made, both of her like own volition and the throes of addiction, make a lot of sense. Like, I think like her getting to the end of the show and not being able to, I mean, many addiction narratives that we, watch on television are, very optimistic, and that's not always the case. And here you have a character that you're rooting for,
Mm-hmm.
now granted that, she didn't realize it was laced with fentanyl, but that, you run that risk when you sort of like engage with like these kinds of drugs that like, this is something this season in
Right.
particular has talked about. I think Sam Levinson has said that was intentional. Like he sort of became obsessed with how common fentanyl deaths had become in the United States, and then that's direct extension of how much that becomes sort of a running commentary and theme through the season. But
Right. It's worth noting that this Euphoria season 3 takes place, I believe, during the 107 days during which Kamala Harris was running for president against Donald Trump, if I'm not mistaken.
but they make that real clear during a uncomfortably long sequence of the news reading out the state of the race between Harris. We're like, are we going somewhere with it? Like it was like 30 seconds long for like this newscaster. But you know, again, Zendaya is such a phenomenal actor. I think she sells what happens to her as best that she can. I think she gets a fitting send off sort of narratively for where that character was on the journey they've been on. It's just, as we've discussed, I sort of disagree with how we arrived there, but I don't necessarily disagree that this isn't a pretty natural place to say goodbye to the character.
Right. I will say that, okay, so first of all, we do see Alamo take one of the Percocets, right? One of the pills himself, to kind of demonstrate, hey, there's nothing wrong with these. You can pop them. But we believe it is intentional that he has laced her pills with fentanyl and he means for her to die, right? Like we believe that that's true. But I do agree that there is something that kind of makes sense about Rue's death. We talked about Nate Jacobs' death as like that coming out of nowhere for that character. But yeah, this is a logical end that if you like escalate your involvement with these types of figures, then that is something that will happen. Now, was she in the process of really doing that before Lori came for her at the beginning of this season? I don't think she was, right? If I recall correctly, right? Mm-hmm. Like, wasn't she just trying to live a normal life? But then she had this debt that she had to pay back. Now that may also be true to life, where people have commitments that they made that like then need to be called back, or something they promised someone in jail that needs to like be called back on now that that person's out of jail or whatever it is. And so, but all that said, the idea of Rue dying makes sense. It makes sense, and I don't mind it. I don't mind it as like a thing. I do mind the stuff that comes after, and we're going to talk about that right now.
Are you hold on? You're telling me that's not also a dream sequence? That is actually the storytelling of the show? Oh, that's unfortunate.
3 months later, Ali attends his final recovery meeting where he confesses that he has lost faith and declares the dealers, politicians, and enablers of the drug trade simply evil. He then confronts Alamo at his strip club. After Bishop secretly unloads Alamo's gun, Ali shoots and kills him. End quote. Let's just talk about that. Again, pretty effective sequence. Now, do we believe that Ali would actually go do this? I don't know. Patrick, you have rewatched like Ali's interactions with Rue more recently than me. Like, does the Ali that we saw in the specials and the rest of the show, do we think he would saw the tip off of a shotgun and go in guns blazing into a strip club like this? What do you think?
No, definitely not. 100% not. Like, if you wanted to have the character, the kind of origin story we get for this character just recently in the show, if you wanted to use that earlier and set the stage for a character who finally breaks, like they were an awful person, to their wife, to their children, and then have tried to rehabilitate themselves and help others, but their method of helping feels good, like feels like they're doing good in the world, but it's not enough. People just keep fucking dying. This approach maybe isn't the best use of my talents and my contribution to doing good. So like the kind of conclusion he draws,
right,
I don't think is necessarily one the character couldn't have drawn, but it all happens exceptionally quickly. So no, I don't think there's any world you could get me to. He saws off a shotgun in his fucking house and then like goes and impersonates a veteran and heads to the strip club. None of that. I was genuinely hoping by the end, you've set up this dream framework. Is this character breaks? The death of Rue is just one death too much. Cannot believe that this happened to someone He uses the term daughter later on in a way that I do not feel like was earned by the relationship
Mhm.
between those two, and I
Mhm.
thought was a little odd. But let's take it. Like let's assume that like at some point Ali had sort of like looked at Rue as a daughter, given that he's not really
Right.
involved in the lives of his actual daughters anymore. Fantasized about like doing something like this, but
Yeah.
then it turns out no, that's like not actually something he could do or would do. Be an expensive dream sequence, but it would have made more sense narratively than one in which that's how we get Alamo Brown's, shocking send off is by him marching in there and well, he lost the gunfight. He didn't even win the gunfight. He won by default.
Couple things. First of all, Ali is shown having war medals in the show,
Okay.
so he's not impersonating a military officer. Um, but yeah, and I will also say the scene when he's sawing off a shotgun, I do think might be a reference to No Country for Old Men when we see Llewellyn Moss do the same thing. He saws off a shotgun before going up against Anton Chigurh. The kind of way in which it's done, kind of like
Mhm.
shot and edited, kind of reminded me of that. So I just wanted to call that out. But yeah, would we believe that he's willing to go on a freaking shooting spree? The consequences of which we never really find out, by the way. Like, I don't. He just kind of leaves and is able to move about the country freely afterwards. So okay, fine. But anyway, speaking of unresolved things, we also never really find out what Alamo Brown was doing with all those girls' IDs. They were in his IDs were in they were in his shop. Laurie took them. He got them back. And presumably he was using those girls for some kind of trafficking purpose, but we never discover what that is. That's never like fully
No, because I mean,
explained.
one of the
So
IDs is the girl that Rue took to
yeah, Angel,
rehab
Angel, and stuff.
and
Yeah,
never
so
came back. So
so
I,
it
I
never came back.
assume that is,
Yeah,
yeah,
but they never explain what that is, so that's
no.
unresolved. Anyway, so then Alamo Brown faces off against Ali after talking with he has this open moment with Maddie where he's very vulnerable to Maddie and says like I want the American dream and I want more than I have right now. And again, I think Alamo is like a compelling character. I don't really have anything negative to say about the Alamo Brown character. Like that seems like a fully fleshed out character that all of whose actions make complete sense to me. Would Ali go in storming guns blazing to try to avenge Rue? I think you're right that the show doesn't fully earn that they have that level of connection. Especially because the whole time he's convincing her to not do illegal things. Like he's already straightened himself out, and like, is the death of Rue that shattering to him that he's like, I can't believe that would happen. It's just destroyed my faith in the universe. I just don't feel like. Not only do I not believe that, I feel that kind of cheapens the Ali character a little bit to
Yes,
think that that's the case.
100%.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so then
Uh huh.
Alamo Brown sets up this duel, right? And he says, "Hey, like roll this bottle, and then when the bottle hits the ground, then we draw." And then
Which
he
is
draws.
sick. Which is sick. I his commitment to arbitrary bits to
Right?
determine the life and death of people is great.
Yes.
Like in an episode in a
Game
season
recognized game. I mean,
that I
like,
have like have very little to say about in terms of cohesion. The Alamo Brown character and especially this little bit of his is like as soon as he said it, I'm like, love the fact that he's making it a fairish fight and like we have just the most ridiculous terms to determine who is going to when they are going to fire. Great, no notes.
but he finds out that Bishop has already replaced the bullets with nothing. He's taken the bullets out and given Alamo an empty gun, and Alamo is able to realize what happened right before he dies. And I think this kind of sucks, and what I mean by that is I am able to be convinced that Bishop would betray Alamo Brown. I am able to be convinced,
Mhm.
right? Because Bishop has seen a lot of bad things. He's seen Alamo treat his employees very badly, including killing Rue, right? He's witnessed all that go down. And therefore I would buy that he would not be happy with Alamo and want to betray him. I just don't think the show did anything. Like the show really needed to not tip its hand so that you could be surprised and like, whoa, I can't believe Bishop did that. And that is just a really sad way of generating like what I think would be better in that scenario is, oh, this is the logical conclusion of Bishop's character, and you really are satisfied that Bishop got one over on Alamo, but like I don't think the track has really been laid for that personally.
Nope.
Pat, yep, you agree? Yep.
Yep. Again, this is things that are basically impossible to do with the running time that they can dedicate. Even as characters were overlapping and the world was getting smaller, there's just not enough time to allow an arc like that to feel completely satisfying. Like when it happened, I rewound a bit. Like, did I miss something? Like, where is this?
Right.
Like, of course, there's backstabbing amongst like groups like this, but I don't. Nothing that I've watched across this season has clocked that it's like a fun. Like it's okay for it to be a fun surprise, but this is just a surprise.
Yeah. Even his earlier speeches against Rue seem more like anti-Rue than anti-Alamo, you know? And so, yeah, I do not believe they have sufficiently laid the track. I do actually like Bishop as a character overall, though, because it is reasonable to me that a guy who works for Alamo would need to have no affect because of the horrible things that he sees all the time. And therefore, like, you would not have any emotion at all. But he did such a good job that it's like, why does he have emotion at the end there? Like, what's going on? And we never really get any explanation. Like, it's not like Bishop sits down and explains like why he did what he did, right? So, yeah. Elsewhere, Cassie and Maddie plan to turn Nate's house into an influencer business and invite Lexi to join, but she refuses. Jules copes with Rue's death by painting her portrait. End quote. I don't know, man. Like,
why even include this character this season?
Why even include this entire subplot? A lot of people have pointed out that in season 3 of Euphoria, it feels like every woman on this show is in the process of being assaulted, abused, or demeaned in any given scene. And that definitely is true. And that's not necessarily like you can, I don't necessarily think you can not do that as long as you're trying to make some really good point about the sex worker industry or OnlyFans or what have you. And I don't feel like the show did that at all. Like I did not find it to be particularly insightful. I thought, Margot has got money troubles. Like another show on Apple TV Plus that also deals with OnlyFans. It is more interesting and insightful about what it's like to try and balance your life with this whole other existence you have online and the troubles that come with that. Like this show, in my opinion, the entire Cassie, Maddie, Lexi subplot just added up to a big nothing burger for me. Patrick, am I wrong?
No, it basically just leveraged the aesthetics of OnlyFans as a way to show Sydney Sweeney naked and in different costumes for the course of a season. It adds up to nothing. There's literally nothing to say about sex work and the commoditization and like democratizing of sex work. It just OnlyFans is neat. We'll just drop that into our show. Like profoundly frustrating. I don't think
there is one interesting moment at the very, very end when the camera pulls out of the house and you see Sydney Sweeney's character there all by herself, almost like she's in a dollhouse, like just preserved there, lonely, not surrounded by anyone she knows or loves. And it's like, oh, okay, it's maybe about the isolating impact of what this industry is.
Maybe about is like the most you can get to, right?
Yeah,
like
that's right. Like that visual lands that point.
It's a great shot.
It's a great shot.
But this is what drove me in like nuts about this episode is it convinces you of substance that does not exist. And this is not a subtext is for cowards situation. Like I don't need the show to like turn to me and go, so here's what we were trying. But there's nothing there. It's an illusion. It is aesthetic masking the lack of anything, any substance or anything to say. And that is, I think, no more best illustrated than in the Cassie storyline in particular, which is just a grab bag of things that doesn't really add up to anything. And that shot is a beautiful shot. Like I feel like I'm going to see clips of that shared around because it is really striking the way that camera pulls out. And it could be that thing where in the moment, like, oh, yeah, But then if someone was to pause and like, what do you think that means? Like, profound. Like, but what about? Not sure. And like, that's how I feel about this season of Euphoria. Like,
Fair enough.
the way that music sort of manipulates your emotions, like it puts you in a place where like you can hear music that accentuates you feeling happy or sad. I think that's what Sam Levinson does with like visuals, is makes like kind of puts you in a place where you're feeling something. But if you like to really examine what's happening with the words and like the stories and the characters, it's not supporting the visuals in the way that you would want.
Speaking of the music, I do think that Hans Zimmer helped to write the score for the season. I don't think it was a good fit. I think it made it feel more. It felt like the music was trying to make things seem more dramatic and epic than they actually were, and I was just not a huge fan of the score of the season. Also, my biggest complaint about season 2 of Euphoria is that it lost sight of the Rue-Jules relationship. And then this season seems to do the same thing. Like, why even introduce Jules again if you're not going to do anything interesting with her? Disastrous. Like, I do not think that where their relationship ended was satisfying at all. And it just is a huge bummer. It's a huge bummer. Ali later visits a religious family Rue had known, introduces himself by his Islam pre-conversion name, and leads a prayer during which Rue appears peacefully in a vision. A lot of people have been talking about whether or not Sam Levinson is trying to promote some concept of Christianity in this episode of the show. There is this whole speech that Lexi gives about reading the Bible, and she says, I read it and I thought it'd be boring, but no, it's so interesting. And Patrick Klepek, I have read the Bible, okay? And I don't know what Bible reading program Lexi was using.
Bible GPT that spices up the...
She does. There are vast sections of the Bible that are like especially if she's reading from beginning to end. There are vast sections of the Old Testament that are just really, really boring, like endless laws, minutia about what laws you're supposed to follow, and her description of the Bible is kind of true, but it also felt like it was false advertising for the Bible. Like, no, the Bible is one of the most interesting texts ever made, but it is not necessarily riveting reading in the same way that, like, if you listen to Lexi and started reading the Bible afterwards expecting what she says, I think you'll be disappointed.
I'm not convinced that Sam Levinson has read the Bible. Think he read a summary. Wow, those stories are really I can understand why the story summaries maybe a little intriguing, but I'm not fully convinced he's read the Bible.
There is an interview that Sam Levinson gave to the New York Times, and I think it's kind of interesting about what he says to them. Right. First of all, the New York Times talks about how they think like, oh, it ends in such a dark place. Like, Ali has just murdered these guys and it ends in such a dark place. And he says, really? Like, I thought it ended at a place of grace, at the table and everything like that. And then it kind of ends with, God bless us all. Shot of this farm with an American flag. And one of two things is happening. Either Sam Levinson is promoting this traditionalist Christian vision of America as a kind of salve or balm for some of the deepest ills and issues that some people in this country in America face. Or he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just throwing around shit without any sense of what the symbolism means. And it just inadvertently comes off as a promotion for American Christianity. What do you think is more likely, Patrick Klepek?
I think if I'm continuing my own response and arguments on the lack of substance in this episode, it really just feels like his TikTok feed showed him trad wives. It was like, all right, let's put that in the show. It's like as good faith of a
right.
Like, because the alternative is what you're talking about.
That's the answer to people's problems is like, we need to go back to our roots of like living on a farm with people we love. And that would solve everything. Like people you wouldn't need fentanyl if you did that at all. Right?
No, everything was fine back then. And yeah, it really, again, it feels, I don't think it's like, I don't think it's saying anything is like how I view that. Like it really does feel like it is just taking what is now in the pop culture, like the popularity of trad wives, like back to tradition, which is obviously, any reading up on that that is just far right indoctrination of women, like, and trying to establish them in a different role in society than the one they're in now. I don't know that. I didn't look at that and go like, I think Sam Levinson thinks he thinks the far right's points on trad wives, or that's what will fix what ails us. I don't think that, but what I actually think is not much better, which is that it's just taking the iconography and the aesthetics of that in the same way that he's doing with OnlyFans and Tarantino with a lot of the crime arc, and just applying it haphazardly without a real sense of what it's saying or how it could be interpreted. I mean, it's a really lazy way of applying aesthetics. Like, it just betrays any sort of meaning beyond, I don't know, eye of the beholder. What do you see in it? It's like,
I do think he's onto something about how a lot of drug addicts turn to religion as a way of coping with the world and making sense of the things around them. But I don't think that has been particularly built out in any significant way this season. And if people disagree, let us know in the comments at youtube.com/decodingtv. But your interpretation is he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not promoting Christianity. And I think you're probably right. I think he's just kind of, hey, this looks good. This feels right. It's very vibes based, I think, is probably what it is. It's very vibes based.
Makes perfect sense to end this story with Ali and not Rue's mom and sister. That's, great. That should be the final shot with this show. The fact that Rue's mom doesn't even get a line to react to her daughter's death, given how much time that show spent on that relationship.
Season 2, particularly that whole episode with Rue going on
it's incredible.
Going AWOL and all that stuff. And it's like, it's shocking. It's shocking to me that, and she was willing to come back. In fact, Nika King has given interviews about how, and there was this viral bit that she's like, hey, I need to start working at a restaurant because I need to get cast. Like, I need to be cast in more things. Obviously, super talented actress, and was available. And they decided not to. Her getting informed about Rue's death takes place off screen. Ali calls her on the phone, and we never see her reaction to it.
No, none. It's which there's a certain haunting nature to like not being invited into that. But I expected, this is not the kind of show that probably was going to do the, hey, we did the wedding in the beginning and a funeral at the end as an excuse to get everyone back in a room together. But for the show being as widespread as it was, I would have preferred something like that to give some sense of closure to all of these characters. And it's just, again, I think it's the show not treating the characters as seriously as they deserve. Like, it feels more like toys by the end. And I think that's insulting to the audience and insulting to the characters you came up with. I mean, I know technically Euphoria is a adaptation of a show. Like, it's not like it is, calling it a remake is not like, does not qualify, but it has origins beyond just Sam Levinson. But I think it's
safe to say he's made it his own.
Yeah, but Sam Levinson and built characters I loved. And so I think that's where the more hostile reaction comes from, is I feel like I took this more seriously than you did with season 3. And that's where I think a lot of my frustration hits a high point with the finale.
In an interview with New York Times podcast, Sam Levin said the following, and this is how we'll wrap up today. He said, talking about this season, we have to portray the seduction of these illicit behaviors that's truthful and reflective of their draw in our own lives. What's most important to me is showing the consequence of it. Rue says it in the second episode of the first season. They're doing drugs under the tent with the glitter stuff, and it's like, drugs are cool in the same way that smoking is cool. or any of it until it's not. We cut to her and she's getting wheeled out of her house on a stretcher because she OD'd. And her family's sitting there in the hospital with her and her little sister's crying. We reveal that it's not just that she's hurting herself, but she's in fact destroying the lives of everyone around her. So I think it's always a fine line. Have we gotten it right 100% of the time? I don't know. But I think we have shown the psychological, physical, and spiritual consequences of addiction in all of its forms better than almost anything else out there. And that, I think, helps me sleep at night, end quote. So that is a clear articulation of what he's trying to do this season. And he's kind of talked similarly in interviews that he's trying to show the consequences, psychological, physical, and spiritual consequences of addiction in all its forms. Patrick Klepek, do you feel like this season has accomplished that in any way?
No, and part of that is because the scope of like what Rue gets drawn up into by like that's not the natural progression, like an arc for a character that was otherwise like fairly, it was the high stakes of high school, but all of a sudden she's caught up as like being a a rat for the DEA and like involved in like none of that. You wanted to tell a story about the consequences and seduction of addiction and the trade surrounding it. Well, you didn't do that. I don't think so. Like it felt like more like you were displaying, or to have done so is done as surface level as possible. It's the aesthetics of many of the things that kind of go along with some of this, but much more from a, is he speaking about how this is presented in cinema or how it's happening in real life? Because it feels like a lot of what he borrowed and traded on was the glitzy stuff that cinema like dramatizes the drug trade, much less so what would your average charismatic high school kid that was addicted, what would they encounter as they exited young, high school to some form of young adult life? You can heighten it to a certain degree, but like this heightened it into an action film. And like you can't pretend to be telling a serious story about the seduction when that's the structure you're dropping the story into.
Well, Patrick, despite the fact that we thought this season was mostly a waste of time, hey, there were some good moments. Zendaya is an amazing actor. The Alamo Brown character is wonderful. There's some really great, wonderfully directed sequences this season. And we really appreciate people joining us for this journey at Decoding TV. If you watched us on YouTube at youtube.com/Decoding TV, or you listened on Decoding TV podcast, wherever podcasts can be found, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And even though this season didn't turn out as we'd hoped, we still had a great time chatting about it with each other and with you. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.